places I've been, the people I've known, the deaths I died, the seeds I've sown. I give way where way is to be given. I let go. Let life do the living, yeah. Let life do the living. Aw. Good morning, my friends. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful day. My name is Travis. Welcome to my YouTube channel here. If you like what you see, please subscribe. I've got music in a playlist called Travis's Studio Recordings. If you want to go check that out. I like to do these videos on, I just call it mental health and spirituality, for lack of a better term right now. But anyway, today I want to talk with you about the 12-step program. I spent about 5 years working the 12 steps in community, and I found it very helpful, although I went kind of kicking and screaming. I did not want to be there. After 5 years of experience, study and mostly experience, like the kind of experience that just kind of hands your ass to you, I feel that I can summarize what the Alcoholics Anonymous program has to offer us quite simply. Quite simply, the big book tells us that alcohol is not a problem. Big book tells us that alcohol and alcoholism is just a symptom of the one problem. And the one problem is that we feel we are separated. We are believing in this illusion of self. The one problem is our ego. The one problem is our selfishness and self-centeredness. That's how the big book states it, but it's the same thing. It's ego, right? It's this illusion of separate self which causes us to suffer. So step one is, I found that my life has become unmanageable and I am powerless over blank. You can put anything in that blank. In the AA program, it happens to say, I'm powerless over alcohol, right? But it really doesn't matter because alcohol's not the problem. Alcohol's not the problem. The problem is our ego. The problem is we're addicted to ourselves. That's what we're really addicted to. I'm addicted to me. That's the only problem. There's only one problem. And when that problem gets solved, then all the other problems seem to greatly diminish because all those other problems are an illusion, right? And once that one problem is solved, there really never was a problem because none of this really ever was. So that's the whole program summed up right there. You know, when I first got into the AA rooms, I had a problem. I thought I was separate and I was suffering deeply. And that problem was relieved when I found out that I was not alone. And it's a beautiful thing when we come into contact with other people who understand suffering and who understand salvation in themselves, right? It says in the big book, one place it says, we know but a little, more will be revealed. And I love that about the book. You know, the literature in many ways seems outdated. It was written back in the 30s, so when I first went in, that's what we're doing. That's what we tend to do when we're isolated and we feel like we're alone, is we're pointing fingers at things and finding fault in other things. So when I first got in the rooms, I was just like, look at this literature and all the mention of the word God and in the 12 steps and blah, all I had these hidden resentments. I mean, I had already been doing, mindfulness meditation, reading books on self-compassion. I did not even know how much hidden resentment I had. That's another huge teaching in the 12-step program in the big book, is it says resentments are toxic for us. Holding resentments is like drinking poison. and hoping someone else is going to die. that's that's the insanity of it, right? That's a beautiful teaching in the book. The book also tells us that we no longer have to struggle against anyone or anything. What we resist persists. What we struggle against, yes, my friend, even alcoholism. If we think we're struggling against alcoholism, if we think we're struggling against overeating, if we think we're struggling against anger, if we think we're struggling against this or that, whatever we think our problem is, all these little problems, those aren't the problems. We can go around putting out these little fires for an entire lifetime, and it's never going to bring the oneness about in us, because that's just our ego fixing ego problems, right? The ego is so tricky that way. The ego has all these different acts. The ego's got angry act, the ego's got self-righteous act, but the ego's also got like I'm a good person act, right? The ego's got a humility act. The ego's got a Buddhism act. The ego's got a Christian act. The ego's got all of these acts that it does, right? But until we truly have the one problem solved in ourselves, and we truly accept that one answer, that we are not separate, and then we truly choose to release and forgive everything and everyone, then we're just fixing a bunch of little problems. Like the boy with putting the fingers in the dam, like one finger in this hole, and then another water leak springs over there, and he's reaching over with his toe trying to put it, pretty soon he's out of fingers and toes to plug up the holes, right? And that's what our lives are like. So there are a lot of great things I learned in my 5 years in the AA program, in the 12-step program. So many good things. So many good things. Sharing. When we share our experience, we share our strength, and we share our hope. And it is from this perspective from which we share, right? Because if we're trying to give advice and tell people what we think they need, then we're outside of our scope. We're outside of what we really know, because all we really know is this one subjective experience, right? We can talk about the things we think we know. We can talk about the way we think the world should be, the way I think you should be. I can do that all day long, but there's not a lot of healing in that, because generally people are closed off to that type of thing, because we are really the only true teacher for ourselves. Everything must come from within. The Savior comes from within. The kingdom of heaven is within. We are the Christ. We are the Savior in here. We become that Savior. We allow the Savior to arise from within us, right? So when you first get in the 12-step program, a lot of times we get in there because we've been, a lot of people get in there because their drinking is out of control. Why else would you go to a meeting? I actually ended up at a meeting. My drinking wasn't out of control. That I was hurting so bad that I ended up going to 12-step meetings anyway, which is exactly what I needed. I thought that I had I like to smoke some weed, and I was just so desperately trying to fix myself that, even though I hadn't been smoking for quite some time, I could tell that I was about to try to fix my problem by smoking. Right. And I was doing everything right in my life at that point. Honestly, that's what the ego says, right? I was exercising, I was studying, I was socializing, I was meditating. There were so many things right that I was doing in my life, yet I was still suffering. My meditation partners came over one day to sit with me, and I had to send them home because I wanted to jump out of my skin. And it was on that day that I called my friend who was in the 12-step program, and I said, "Hey, I know you value your sobriety. Could I talk with you?" And she said, "Why don't you come to a meeting?" And I was like, "Oh, hell. Seriously?" Because I know those meetings are held at churches, and that's exactly where I did not want to walk into, was a church. And I got to that first meeting, and sure enough, God, God, God was up on that board on the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, and that is exactly what I did not want to see. But you know what, my friends? That is exactly the word that I needed to make peace with. I needed to make peace with the dissonance, with the disturbance that I had around that word. And that's kind of what the 12-step program did for me overall, is it helped me to make peace with God. There's a chapter called We Agnostics, and it basically says in that chapter, the whole purpose for this book is to bring you back into a conscious communion with your Creator, with God, with your higher power. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's okay. That's another thing I love about the 12-step program, is that it's about a God of your own understanding. Now, there may be some people who have some kind of problem with that, but I think if we look at it truly, everybody's got a God of their own understanding from their own subjective experience. Even if you are gathering in a church building and you say, we're a Bible-believing church and this is what we believe, how could anyone ever possibly have the same understanding of who God is? It's impossible, right? So everybody honestly has a God of their own understanding. Let's just accept that. But what I saw are these people who were coming together. One of my friends, she said, it's like a meeting of the gods here. It's a meeting of the gods, right? I saw people who were creative and courageous in their faith, who didn't need an organization or another person to tell them who their God was. And you know what that does for us? It opens our hearts up wide to allow who God is to be redefined. And that's kind of what we need. God is just a word, right? God is a word, but God is a presence. God is the I am. God is, maybe don't let my lack of being able to describe it for you hold you back. God is the unobjectifiable mystery of the universe, that which cannot be named, the breath of all creation. God is love, right? God is the great spirit. God is the unknowable. The Tao which can be spoken is not the Tao at all, right? Who is God? Who are you? Who am I? The isness, the suchness, the very presence that observes all that is happening in your being, right? That which observes all of the changing nature of what's been going on in our lives ever since we can remember. Somebody said that your higher power could be a doorknob or a pole in the middle of the room. I don't know how that would work, but it's basically whatever works, right? Whatever leads you to a greater truth. If it's setting you free, it's truth, my friend. There is no fear. There is no fear. Fear is an illusion. What worked in the 12-step program for me was the fact that I connected. For me, there was one human being that I especially connected with in the 12-step program. And he approached me after that first night, after that first meeting. He approached me after that meeting and he said, "Hi, you look like you're hurting. Can I help?" And that mattered to me. He said, "Hey, why don't we go get some drinks?" And so we went to Sonic and we got drinks together and we started sharing our stories. And you know, it just happened that I met this man who helped me, who did not put himself above me or below me in the process. He said, "Here's how this is going to work if we want it to work together." He said, "Here's the tradition. How this program started is there was a guy named Bill and a guy named Bob. And they came together. And when they came into each other's presence, they found healing in one another, with one another. They encountered God with each other. They encountered their healing. And he said, that's how this program works. It's just one alcoholic sharing their suffering and sharing their salvation with another alcoholic. And I love that. I love that. That's what was shared with me in the program. And then there's also the groups that you go to. And we learn in those groups how to share honestly, how to be honest, how to be open, how to be willing. I just happen to go to AA meetings in a small town, so there's small groups, so there's always a chance to share. I got to show up. If you're in a big town, obviously that's not going to be the case. You're going to go and nobody's going to want to listen to you. But I was in a little town, right, with little meetings. And so I mattered when I first showed up there, right? And that mattered to me. And those people in those meetings let me, I don't know how many times I got up and just walked the fuck out of those meetings, right? And they let me come and go, and no one ever criticized me. Well, they did a little bit. Joe criticized me a little bit, but she's always had a smile on her face, and she was always okay. When I had something else to say about that too, but that is no longer, is it, my friend? No, we don't have to do that anymore. Thank goodness. Yeah, there's a lot of freedom. There can be a lot of freedom, just like anything else. It's about the group of people that you encounter in the midst of all that, right? And it's about one's own willingness to discover their own healing, I do believe. So this is me today carrying on the tradition, sharing my experience, sharing my strength, and sharing my hope with you. I'm going to do some more meetings about, or some more videos about the steps, just sharing a little bit. Just because there's such joy in it all for me, there's such joy. We embrace form, we embrace teachings, and then we let them go. We move through form. And as we move through form, we move through with forgiveness. So the one thing that seemed to be the answer 2 years ago may not be that thing anymore. But form we're always moving through form. That's what the Christ showed us. The Christ showed us how to move through form with forgiveness, right? The form that he was born into, the external form, a religion of external. He asked us to start looking inward. He showed us how to move through form. Another form that he was the cross, right? That was the form. He was nailed to his form, right? But then he died a death of the self, and then there was a resurrection. So many beautiful lessons, right? And so don't be afraid of a new form. Don't be afraid of the 12-step program for maybe what you've heard about it or what might be wrong with it. Because the truth is that we are our own Savior, right? As we accept this the invitation that we have to forgive everything and everyone, we become that Savior. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God for all the forms that are available out there, for all the tools, for all the different groups, the different ways, the different paths that we might find our salvation. I make an invitation to you today. I make an invitation to you to discover the true teacher in yourself and to realize that whatever offense you may find in yourself, that's exactly where it is. It's in yourself. It may look like it's on the outside. It may look like it's up on that board in the word God, but you know where that offense is really? It's right here. It's right here. And we get to forgive that. We get to forgive that. And as we forgive, as we release those resentments, we are no longer an alcoholic. You think God is calling us an alcoholic? I don't think so. God is saying you are loved, you are safe, you are whole, you are free, you are a boundless being with an unlimited mind. God, I don't believe is calling us an alcoholic, and I don't think, maybe it's beneficial to go in there and say, hi, I'm Travis, I'm an alcoholic. Maybe that's part of step one, of admitting that I am powerless, that admitting that I can't live with myself anymore, admitting that this ego experience is not working, admitting that this false self has run out, right? Maybe that's just a label for the ego. I'm an alcoholic. I've been enveloped. I've been completely just crushed by my own false self, which is this alcoholic. That's not you, though, right? That's not who you are. And you know what? There's no rules in those rooms that you have to say you're an alcoholic. It's not written anywhere in the book. thou shalt call thyself an alcoholic, or thou shalt face the consequences, There's also one of the daily reflections. There's a 365-day book, about the day. It's a daily reflection. There's a daily reflection that says that AA is just a spiritual kindergarten, right? It's just a place where we go when we're killing ourselves with something. So maybe it's time to graduate. I don't know. My sponsor always used to say that he's never going to graduate, but I think it's time. It might be time to graduate from that spiritual kindergarten, and realize that there are other forms out there. There's so much more, right? There is so much more. And I'm not speaking against anything. I am so grateful for all the love, all the beauty that I experienced, all the acceptance that I experienced in those rooms. I find no fault in any of you. One thing I did see, though, is that in those rooms, a lot of times we would get caught up in that identity. We get caught up in this kind of self-bludgeoning. Oh, I'm so selfish. Oh, I know I'll always be an alcoholic. There's this me that I've got to keep in control. I've got to repress him. I've got to hold him down because I know what he'll do to me. He's terrible. And there's this resistance that we're showing. So many people I saw in those rooms would say, I'm fighting this disease every day. Well, the book clearly says we no longer have to fight against anything or anyone, including alcohol. It clearly says that. So there is no fight. This is not a struggle against alcohol. This is not a struggle against overeating. This is not a struggle. If we're struggling, guess who's struggling? That's the false self. It's the false self that's struggling against the false self. And that's one of the huge tricks that we get caught up into. The false self doing meditation, the false self praying, the false self doing this, the false self doing its best loving act, the false self sacrificing for those that he loves. That's insanity. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Right? And that's the whole process, right? And however you find yourself in that process today, I say yes to it. However it is that you are being restored to sanity. This video is just, hopefully maybe opening up an option to somebody. I don't know what I can't judge what this video will do. I'm just here with the message that there's only one problem. We believe we're separate. We believe we're alone. And that's what's causing all the other little problems out there. And once that problem is solved, once we choose a deeper experience, once we choose forgiveness, then we start living a resurrected life, a new life, a life that is for a deeper purpose. And I am today, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what's happening in this being, is I'm just answering that call. Hopefully making some connections with you. Let me know what you think. Please connect with me. I love to hear from you. I've connected with Craig out there, some other people. I'd like to dedicate this video to my friend Michelle in Portales, New Mexico. Thank you, Michelle, for being my friend, and I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best. I love all of you. I love you. I love you. I find no fault in you. Namaste. God bless you. And all the other things that we might say to one another. To let each other know that there's no attack, there's no defense, no justification. Here we are. Here we are together. Here we are. Breathe with me. Please breathe with me. Smile with me. Smile with me. Smile with me, my friend. I love you.